Alright techies, this is episode 11 of my Java Discord bot tutorial series. This is an unexpected episode. Obviously I thought I'd ended the series, but I've decided to make another episode about making a music bot. Obviously a lot of the music bots on Discord are being shut down due to YouTube having a fit, but they can't shut you down if you're just hosting it on your own. So I'm going to show you how to make it. Obviously you could implement this into a bot that's going to go across all servers, but you'll eventually get a very nasty email from YouTube telling you to shut it down. You can do this just on your private server. They're not going to be looking at it, they're not on it, they don't know it exists. So we're going to be using something called Lavaplayer. It is a library by this guy. I have no idea how you meant to pronounce that. And we're going to be using a structure looking a bit like this for our classes. I just made this to show you how this is going to work. So we're going to have 4 main classes. This doesn't include the commands, so stuff like the play command and stuff. This just uses some of these. So the main 2 that do control the audio is the track scheduler and the audio forwarder. So the track scheduler obviously you can see it has a player and a cue. So the player is what controls the currently playing song or track, and also plays it, I guess. And the cue is kind of like where you can it's kind of obvious. It's just what songs are coming up next. So it uses this to start playing the new songs in the audio player. This actually extends the track listener or something like that. Can't remember exactly what it's called. And so this means we have an on-track end method. This is it's like an event. So when the track ends, it will call this method. This is what we'll use to start playing the next song. And then the queue method is something we're going to add, which is just a method that will allow us to add something to the queue from somewhere else. The other one that is the main thing is the audio forwarder. So the track scheduler controls what's playing. The audio forwarder actually sends it to Discord. So this will make sure it's in the correct encoding format, and then it will send it off into the voice channel, into the bot. Very simple class. It just implements a class from Lavaplayer, and then we use that to send it off to Discord. And then we have the Guild Music Manager. This literally just ties the 2 together. It just has a track scheduler and an audio forwarder, and then it puts them together. We need to have 1 per guild, because obviously we want to have different queues in each server. It would be a bit annoying if you're having it on multiple different servers, that one server that you're not even in is using it, so then you cannot use it. So we have separate guild music managers for each one. So that ties these 2 together. And then we have the player manager, which is a singleton, and this stores all of the guild music managers, and it creates them when we need them and stuff. So that's basically the structure all set out. Obviously we'll then have commands like play, which just interfaces with the player manager and stuff. But I think we should get on to making this. So I'll leave a link to this GitHub in the description. So we need to implement it into our project. I'm assuming you know how to do this. If you're on Maven, then I'm assuming you know how to use Maven. If you're on Gradle, obviously we just copy the repositories and put it here, and then dependencies, we can copy the dependency as well. And that .xyz needs to be replaced with the current version. So for me, it's 1.3.77. If you're watching this in the future, it'll probably be a bit more, or not, I don't know. So we can then refresh our Gradle, get that into our project, and it should all get loaded in. So while it's loading, I'm just going to get started. So we can create a new package called Lavaplayer. And the first thing we're going to create is our track scheduler. And so this is going to, well, we can't make it extend it to be finished. I've spelled that wrong. Speed tracks schedule. So this is going to extend, I think it's track audio event adapter, that's it. So this has our on-track end method. So this is the main part of it. This is how the main thing that's going to control it. It's going to be putting the new thing on. So have a look. We're going to have our audio player and our cue. So we can create these. Have our audio player and a blocking cue, which is going to have audio track, cue, and we're just going to create this to be a new. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Stop. This can be a new linked blocking cue. The player, in fact, we probably want these to be final. The player, we're going to pass in the constructor, so we can just create a constructor with that passed in. So on track end, what we're going to do is we're going to do just player dot start track cue dot poll, and this also takes something called no interrupt. So we're going to set this to false. What this is whether it can interrupt or not. So if this is true, then it can't interrupt anything because it has no interrupt. So if there's something already playing, it can't start playing. If it's false, it can just start playing no matter what. So we're going to put this as false here. We're actually going to utilize this later because this returns a boolean for whether it managed. So if we set this to true and there's something already playing, it will return false because it didn't manage to start playing. And again, if it's, so now what we can do is we can create our cue method. So this is going to take in an audio track to cue. And so here what we can do is, again, if we was just to do player.startTrack, the track, and then let's say false again, just like we did up here, this would just start this track no matter what. But what we want to do is we actually want to, if the players start playing something, then we don't want to start the track, we just want it to cue. And I guess we could do some ifs. If the player is playing, what we can do is we can just do if not player.startTrack with no interrupt is true. So this is just going to start it. Obviously it's calling a method, so it's going to start it if we if there's nothing really playing, it will just start it. If there is something really playing, it will return false, which means this if statement will trigger, and we can do cue.offer track. And that is pretty much our track scheduler class done. Very simple class. So we can now move on to our audio forwarder. And so this is going to implement, I think it's called audio send handler. Yeah. And so this is going to we're going to implement all of them, all of the methods, all three. And then we're also, so you can see we also have our audio player, byte buffer, and a mutable audio frame. So again, these are going to be final. So final audio player, and again, this is going to get passed in the constructor, so we can use the same one for these two classes. We're going to have a byte buffer, and we're going to have a mutable audio frame. Mutable audio frame. So the buffer, we can just make this buffer dot allocate 1024, and I'll explain why in a second. And our frame can be new mutable audio frame. So you can see these methods. So we provide, you can see a provide 20 millisecond audio. So we provide 20 milliseconds of audio every 20 milliseconds. So rather than providing all the time, we just provide it every 20 milliseconds. And so what we do is this also can provide method is whether we are actually going to provide anything. And is opus is to do with encoding. We'll talk about that in a second. So the buffer only needs to be 1024 because we only send 1024 bytes every 20 milliseconds. So what we're going to do is we use this frame. We need to actually create the constructor. So we're going to pass in the player in the constructor, and then we can do frame.setBuffer buffer. So we use the frame to actually get all of the data, and then we write it to the buffer, and then the buffer gets sent off to Discord. So in our canProvide method, we actually do player.provide, and so this gets it from the player, and this takes in the frame. So this means that it's going to provide the bits of data to the mutable audio frame, and you'll see that we're actually returning a boolean because this returns a boolean of whether it actually provided anything or not. So if it returns false, then this method isn't going to trigger because we don't need to provide anything because we don't have anything to provide. This frame method, or this frame, then also puts it in the buffer. So what we can do is we can just return buffer. And we want to do buffer.flip. So if you're on a very early version of Java, I believe Java 8 and below, that's not going to work. Buffer.flip is only in the normal buffer, not in a byte buffer. In early versions like that, so you have to cast it to a normal buffer and then make it. But most of you are probably on a newer version of Java, so it doesn't matter. I believe I'm on Java 17. Opus is to do with an encoding, so Discord requires it to be in this certain encoding format. However, Lavaplayer always provides it as Opus, so we can just set true. We don't need to do anything special here. And that's our audio forwarder done. We don't need any getters here. In fact, we probably need some getters in track scheduler for these two because we need to have the player in the queue later on. So now we can create our guild music manager. So guild music manager. This doesn't extend or implement anything. We're just going to have our track scheduler and our audio forwarder, and these are going to be created in the constructor. And this time, rather than taking in a audio player, we're going to take in an audio player manager. And this is how we're going to create that audio player. So we're first going to create the audio player. So audio player, audio player is going to equal to manager.createPlayer. And then our track scheduler can equal a new track scheduler with the player. And then we actually have to set, we need to do player.addListener, and we set the track scheduler as listener. Because if you remember, we actually made this extend the event adapter. So this means that this can be added as a listener to the player. And we need to do this before passing it into the audio forwarder. So they're now sort of connected. You could think of it as we've created both of them, and so now we can just create some getters, and that is basically that class done. There's nothing really special in there, it's just connecting together for each guild. Now we can create our player manager even. So this is going to be a singleton. So I'm assuming you know how to create singletons. Okay, so in this class, we have all of the music managers for the guilds, and we also have an audio player manager. So we can have our hash map. So we're doing this as a map, so we can store, so we have all of the IDs for the guilds and the guild music manager. So this is just storing each guild music manager to the guild's ID. And guild music managers. This is just going to be a new hash map. And then we can have our audio player manager. And this is going to equal a new default audio player manager. So now we need to actually register our sources. So we do audio source manager.register remote source, audio player manager, and audio source managers.register local source player manager. This is to register stuff like YouTube and stuff like that. And so now we can move on to these two methods. So get guild music manager and the play method. So the get guild music manager method, this is to get the guild music manager, like the ID. So we can do get guild music manager. So we're not going to be passing an actual list, and we can take in a guild. And so what we could do is, of course, we could just do guild music manager dot get that guild, but it might not be created. Then we can return guild music managers dot compute if absent. That's going to take in the guild dot get ID long. So this is what this bit here is just the get method. It's just going to get it, but if it doesn't exist, it's going to run this method. So this takes in the guild ID, or it takes in the key, just like this, and this is going to create it. In this method, we can do guild music manager. So we're going to create the music manager. So we can have our music manager. This is going to equal to new guild music manager with audio player manager. Now, before we return this, we actually have to set it for the guild. So guild.get audio manager. We're going to do set sending handler, and we're going to do music manager.get audio forwarder. So if you remember, this is a no, we need the audio forwarder. This is a send handler, which is why we have all these methods. And so we set that for the guild. Then we can just return the music manager. So here, this method will either get it if it already exists, or create it if it doesn't. So now we can move on to our play command. So play, and this takes in the guild and also the track URL. So in here, we first need to get our guild music manager. And we need to do get guild music manager for guild. Then we can do our audio player manager dot load item ordered. And so this is going to take in our music manager. Our identifier is our track URL, and our result handler, we're actually going to create a new audio result handler. So this is going to create an anonymous class. So what this is this is just going to control certain things to do with how we play it. So we need to do the guild music manager dot get track scheduler dot queue track. So this track gets passed in there, and that should start the track. We'll do some more with this later, but for now we're just going to do that, and that should start the track when we load it. So this URL, we're going to take in it can support many formats, I think. Most of these, I think it can just take URLs for them. So things like YouTube, which is the main one we're going to be doing. In fact, we're going to be adding search for it later. But now we can create a play command. That's this. So we can play, and it's going to implement my command. I just need to set up a normal command for this. So I've just set up this command with obviously a name, description, and an option of the URL, which is just a string. So what we can do is when it executes, there's a few things we actually need to test. So we need to test whether I'm going to make this command have the bot join. You can have a separate command for that, but I prefer to have it in one command. So first thing we need is to make sure that the member is actually in a voice channel. So we can get the member by doing event.getMember, and we can get its voice. Imported the wrong member. To make sure you import member from JDA. Then we can do voice state. No, that's the wrong one. Well, we're going to do member.get voice state. So guild voice state, sorry. So this is going to be the member voice state. And so what we can do is we can do if member voice state dot in audio channel. Do if it's not in that, then we need to tell it that you need to be in a voice channel. And we can actually queue that and then return, so we don't do any more of the command. So now we know they're in a voice channel, we need to make sure they are in the same voice channel. Well, if first we can get the bot voice state, so we can do again member, not the right one, member self equals event.getGuild.get self member, and we can do guild voice state of self voice state. It's going to equal to self get voice state. So we need to, if the bot is already in a channel and they're not in the same channel, we need to tell it that. And if it's not already in a channel, then we will just put it in a channel. So we can do if self voice state in audio channel. Then if it's not already in an audio channel, then here we're going to join, and if it is an audio channel, we just need to check if the self voice state get channel is not equal to member voice state get channel. Then we can just apply with need to be in the same channel. Obviously you can style these messages however you like, do embeds, I'm not sure you want to do for these short things. So here we're going to join by doing event.getGuild.getAudioManager.openAudioConnection member.memberVoiceState.getChannel. So if it's not already in a voice channel, it's going to join to the member channel. If it is and it's not in the same channel, it's going to stop the command. And so now we know that it's in the same voice channel as the person, we can actually start playing. So now we actually get, so we need to get our player manager. That's obviously just because it's a singleton, player manager get. And then we can do player manager dot, and we're just going to do dot play, and it's going to be event.getGuild, and we can do our we need our option. I'm just going to get it here, event.getOption name, I set it to .getAstring. Later on we are doing some checks to see if it is a search term or a URL, but for now we're just going to use it as a URL for testing purposes. And so hopefully this should be all working. So if we run our bot, we should be able to test it in our voice channel. Got to mention, you probably want to set this as required, otherwise you're going to get it as being null if someone doesn't put it in. And also remember to reply to the events, because again, I forgot that. It's these little things I always forget the commands. And also you've got to remember to register it. I will always forget to register it. I did it this time, I will always do it. Anyway, we can test this now. So if we do /play and do it from our bot, and I'm going to put in a link, we'll see that it tells me you need to be in a voice channel. If I go into a voice channel and I do it, it should join and play the song, which it does.
Huh? What are you doing in my swamp?
So it plays the link that we gave it. If I try and connect to a different voice channel, it should tell me that I need to be in the same voice channel, and it won't do anything. And so that is the play command all done. So essentially it has function now, very basic function with no stopping or anything like that. But I'm going to do all of the utility command, like say utility commands, all the other commands in the next episode. So I hope you got what you came for. Cheers.